having me, man. Museum of Graffiti.
Yes, sir. Look, man, we exist to celebrate artists like yourself who have put it down for many years and who are ambassadors and who have made a name for themselves in this culture. And so I'm glad you took the time to join me, man. And so
Thank you.
let's start this. I want to read a bit of your bio to folks so they know a bit of who you are. COPE2 was born in the South Bronx of New York City. He started painting in 1978, and in 1982, he created his own crew, Kids Destroyer, which later became King's Destroyer.
Yep.
He was very active through the 1980s and 90s, where he painted on all the New York City subway lines, and this is where he's earned his fame. But as the New York authorities started chasing graffiti artists and severely punishing them, his attention was drawn to a more acceptable practice of studio painting. He would go on to brand the COPE2 moniker on and off the streets through various means like galleries and with major brands such as Time Life, Converse, Adidas, or Foot Locker. His art has been featured in video games like Mark Echo's Getting Up and Grand Theft Auto, and in feature films like Shrek the Third. Highly regarded in the world of graffiti artists, he still paints legally in the streets and collaborates with other artists such as Shepard Fairey, Retna, Kenny Scharf, and others. And in 2014, he painted the highly publicized Bowery Wall in New York City. Cope has exhibited his works in galleries and museums nationally and internationally, notably at the Bronx Museum and Museo del Barrio, McCaig-Wells Gallery, and internationally at Die Hamburger Gallery in Hamburg, and 19 Karen Contemporary Art Space in Australia, and at the Grand Palace in Paris. Wow, that's the short, that's the super short condensed version of your resume.
Yeah, man. It's all in God's plan, man. You know, and I'm thankful for it.
No, it's really impressive. And what I want to do, Cope, is kind of just start early on with you. And, you know, you and I both grew up in the South Bronx, and it really was the landscape which shaped us. Tell me about what it was like for you coming up in the Bronx when you were a kid.
I mean, from my memories, when I started, was like when I lived on 160th and Elton, and lived my mom's, my grandmother, my cousins, and my aunts. We all lived in the same building. And I remember there was a corner bodega there, and you would see the old guys, I guess the old Puerto Rican guys and Cuban guys playing cards and dominoes and stuff like that. And there was always abandoned buildings around. But I was like about, you could say 7, 8 years old. But I remember my cousins making go-karts, and we would play on them and ride them up and down the hill, and people would play skelsies. And, you know, that's from my start. But, you know, going with my moms on the subways and taking these rides on the subways, going to see family members, going shopping for clothes, or you will always see the graffiti, the impact it had. You know, I would just stand there on the platform and just watch these big pieces go by. And by the time I hit like 10, 11 years old, I started to get more into it. And you started to notice more of the big pieces. Like I remember seeing clearly the Comet, the Blades, the Lees, you know, because they were so readable. And I thought it was like just normal. My mother would explain to me, no, that's graffiti, it's illegal, you can't do that, blah, blah. But the energy just, it took me, and I just wanted to do it.
And you grew up at a special time because in that period, and you are a member of OTB, which was founded by Nick 707, but that crew had a history that was phenomenal, and they had great writers like Billy 167, Tracy 168, Band 2, notably Fuzz 1, Knock, Peanut 2 is a really elite group of guys that were really doing a lot of work on the 4 lines back in them days. So you saw a lot. And also, you know, one of the things, a little tidbit I found out about your early years was that one of the members from the crew that I was part of, the Rocksteady crew, was a big influence on you, Rich 7.
Oh yeah, big time, big time. That guy was like He was awesome, and he's always awesome. That's one of the most top genuine guys I've ever met, you know, as a kid. And the thing was, I met him through my cousin Chico, who used to hang out real tough with Mr. Freeze. And they were hanging out tough, and my cousin Chico would bring him to my grandmother's house, and you know, they would eat Spanish food, and I got to know them, and then from there I would see them break dance. Like he started to bring Rocksteady around. And in my neighborhood, when I moved uptown to DeKalb in Meshulah Parkway, I moved up there about 78, 79. You know, I was a little kid. Everything was Star Wars at that time. So, you know, I was just starting to tag in the neighborhood with little markers. But the thing was Star Wars. I was out there stealing Star Wars figures everywhere with some of my friends. We tried to get the whole collection. And I met him through Mr. Freeze, and he would bring Rip 7 around. And then there was little taggers on the block. And then I guess we met Rip 7 through him. And then I always loved Rip 7's tag. He always had a dope tag. And he was a really well breaker too at the time.
Yeah.
You know, really quick. He had quick foot moves, and he inspired me to break too, because I was breaking too, but not that good. I was just learning. So he kind of taught me how to tag and learn. You know, he was really genuine like that. He wasn't like some dudes who try to like not trying to show you love or teach you anything. He put me on too as well. Even though my cousin Chico showed me what graffiti was about, but Rip 7 started to show me the ropes.
And so once you start figuring it out, you start realizing that there are these guys, Mission Graffiti Crew and all those guys from up north. Boots, I have an image right in front of me. It was 3 trains, Boots with Mark 198, Kuda and Mark, and another Billy and Kit. How are these guys, how is this influencing you once you start becoming aware of it?
Because in the late 70s, when I moved up there, I noticed they had tags all around the area. And there was this place called the Oval Park. And there was like a white building in there for the Parks Department to chill. And we used to go to the pool there. And they had tags all over the buildings, Mark 198. And then junior high school 80 had a big peanut tag, a big peanut piece. That had about 2 or 3 peanut pieces. I remember Peanut 2 was really one of my big influences. Because as a kid, I used to watch Welcome Back, Kotter. I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
So see the Peanut 2 piece roll by on the train. And then when you see it there, and then you see it in the schoolyard where you just moved around, that was impactful. So I was like, holy shit, that's the dude that has the piece on the train, Peanut 2. And I noticed a lot of writers growing up, like Phase 2, Band 2, Peanut 2, you know, they always had a 2, King 2. And that's why I added the 2 to COPE, because it was a famous number. And every guy that put a 2 was pretty famous. So
was that your first name?
No, my first name, I remember, was Nash, and then I wrote Bin, B-I-N, and then I wrote Cope, just C-O-P-E, because at the time, a friend of mine, my friend Daryl, he was one of the guys we used to go together up to Yonkers, to Gimbals, and Toys R Us, and Child World, and steal all the Star Wars figures and the Star Wars spaceships. I mean, we were stealing everything, man. We had no money. It was poor kids. We used to hop on the bus, and the crazy shit up there, when we would go up there and we would wait at the bus stop, I would see marker tags by Mitch 77, Disco, and I was wondering, what the hell these guys are doing? And I heard that that's where they would go rack and paint up in Yonkers as well. And they have Martin Paints up there, a bunch of paint hardware stores that you would go inside. And that's where I started to find all the old Krylon cans, the old Rusto cans. It was just, I mean, to live it, you know, it was just a blessing, man.
And you mentioned some important people, and I had just shown a picture of, let me just go back one, because Tracy was up in that area.
Oh, Tracy was...
he was super important to the Bronx.
He was like a superhero. You know, everybody would talk about Tracy. I thought it was a girl at the first time. I was like, who writes Tracy 160? You know, I thought it was a girl, but that was a white dude. It was a white dude. I didn't believe it until I saw him.
Right. And you mentioned somebody else really important was Mitch 77, because he was king of the 4 line.
That was my hero, man. That dude,
Latin artist.
He was like superhero. He was like Superman to me when I was a kid. And I remember Rip 7 one time, he came on the block and he's like, yo, you want to meet Mitch and these guys? And I was like, what? No, I didn't believe it. And he's like, yeah, they're painting this building, a skating rink in Crash in Bedford Park. And I was little, so he took me and I saw like these guys painting. It was called Graffiti Skating Ring.
Yeah.
And I saw Mitch for the first time. It was like seeing fucking, like, seriously, like Superman. I was like, holy shit. Yo, Mitch 77. It was just insane, you know? And I always wanted to be like Mitch because Mitch was like ahead of his time. You know, he had styles, like, he was a style master. I don't want to hear it. This guy had styles that not too many people could rock out. Not even today, man. I'm telling you, the styles Mitch had, and he had, and then he wrote 2 7 Up. I didn't even know that. I thought they were different artists.
Right. Yeah.
I heard,
He
like,
was king of the bus lines with 7 Up. And of course with Q, he would kill on the fours.
yeah,
Uh,
and he had pieces on the CC and the D's because it was close to the 4 yard. So I would sneak in the CC and D yard and see Mitch there, and Iz had it killed. I was just like, who the fuck is Iz? He had every fucking CC train killed, even tags on top of the fucking train.
so how was all this influencing you? Was it that you were kind of like, look, I want to be a bomber or I want to be a style writer? What was your
I wanted
take?
to be everything. I wanted to be all the Marvel and the DC superheroes, villains in one. Like, trust me, because when you see this, when you're a kid, man, when you're like 11, 12, going on 13, and you're on the platform and you see a Mitch 77 burner come down, roll by, or a scene, or even a PJ top to bottom whole car. PJ was a big influence too. PJ did a lot of big whole cars, you know, big readable shit. And even Dondi, you know, I seen Dondi's cars in the 2s and 5s. I was a kid. I used to take the train. My cousin used to take me to this place called Juman's. Was it on? It was like you get off on a Freeman and you walk. And I think there was one on Third Avenue as well. Yeah, I think there was one on Third Avenue first. It was called Juman's. You go there and you get your sneakers cheap. But I always wanted to go. But my cousin would tell me, you got to come with me because people will rob you over there. And, you know, my cousin was tough at the time. I was little. I'd go for mine, but I was a little skinny dude. So I would go there, buy a pair of Pumas or Adidas, and just go and change it from the 4s to 149th Street. You see the 2s and 5s. Boom. Here you go. You see another whole set of new riders. Des whole cars, Scheme whole cars, T-Kid, Case 2. Case 2, I couldn't read it, but it was so dope. And I happened, the reason why, the way I met Case, I was going to school with his cousin in junior high school in 80, named Hep, and he told me the Case 2 was his cousin. I said, yeah, that's bullshit, because everybody's a cousin. Oh, that's my cousin, that's my uncle. You know how it is when you're young. You want to just say that to show off. But I didn't believe him. And he said, yo, you don't believe me? And then when I started to hear he had one arm, one leg, I just could not believe that this dude was doing this with one arm and one leg. And Hep told me, meet me at 149th Street at the bench. And I wasn't going there because that place, if you didn't know anyone there, you're getting fucked up or you're getting robbed, period. And that's the truth. So I was a little dude, and that was not the place to go if you didn't know anybody. 149th Street and Grand Concourse, period.
I would agree with you. It was a sketchy place, and I've had plenty of fights down there, and yeah, I agree with you. It was a place that you kind of had to know someone sometimes to hang out.
Big time.
But the thing is, you're coming up from a tough place in the Bronx. I used to hang out with Mitch and all those guys up at Loring Place.
Wow.
Max 183 and Tex and
That's dope. Too Famous. I remember Too Famous.
Too Fame. Yeah, Too Fame. Fact TKA was one of my partners. Kid 56 was one of my partners.
All that stuff influenced me. All of that.
And we used to call that area Burnside because even though the South Bronx was burnt out, it was really burnt out as you got further up north to where you were. So as you're getting into the game, right, and you're figuring this out, you know, tell me about getting up, right? Like you start KD, Kings Destroy, right, with Spell and Rio, AM1, right? And
AM1, he used to write Cope with the K, then he changed it to AM1. And Ston 3, rest in peace, and Kai, rest in peace. That was our little crew. We all lived in the same block. And I started Kids Destroy because we were kids. I started in like in 82. And the thing was that I see a lot of people writing king, king, king. And I was, what the fuck is a king? And it was like a king, just like Min said, is a person, you know, to become king, you have to have top to bottoms, whole cars, throw-ups, insides, everything. So I was like, wow, that's tough, because at the same time you're trying to do it, there's other people trying to do it. You're not the only writer. There's like hundreds of other writers trying to do it. But I had this. I'm telling you, man, I must have had the spirits of all these big writers in me, because I had I was young, man, and I was trying to kill the four line. I
You know
wanted to
what,
take it.
let me just add that to what you're saying, because the slide that we're looking at is a Cope piece, and you were really young. Your style isn't there, but you are proclaiming the true king. You are already
Terrible,
confident.
terrible.
Yeah, but you were confident enough, right? There were many great kings who were toys, right? But you already proclaiming it at a very young age. And at this point, were you all city when at this
No,
period?
at that time, I was, that is the car I did with Cone. Cone TNF was another partner of mine. This guy was, he was a he was a raw dude. This guy was a stick-up kid. He had mad respect. Cone was no joke. Everybody knew who Cone TNF was. He was even down rock steady. And back in the days, he used to do, I think he was doing one of the guys who started the pop locking and that, from what I know. But, you know, me and Cone started hanging out, and we started doing a lot of cars and a lot of panels. And the thing was, when Mitch, Bantu, Mark 198, all these guys left, they left the four line probably like in 82, maybe they were done. Then came in Blade. I mean, Blade killed it too, because Blade lived on my block and I had no idea. But Blade was killing the four line too at around, I think, 83, 84. He was doing a lot of big blockbusters. I was like, wow, what the fuck? And I found out he lived on my block. I met him later on. But Delta and Sharp came, and they were killing the four line. And this guy Spin, I remember clearly, Spin, Delta, and Sharp, they were smashing the four line. It was like a race with them three. It was like Delta and Sharp racing Spin. But it was like, then they started doing cars together. So I thought, oh, these guys are all cool together. But I was like, damn, I was already hitting the fours, but they made me really push it. Like, I said, wait a minute, these guys are not even from the Bronx, and they're smashing it. And I heard it was catching in Brooklyn layups. Spin was from Brooklyn, and I heard Sharp and Delta was from Manhattan, and they were killing the four line. I mean, they smashed it with a lot of window downhole cars, which really pushed me to want to take over the four line. And that's when I created Kids Destroy and started to dominate the four line really hard. And then they stopped. I took it over. I already took King of the four line probably by early 83. Me and Cone, we had the most window down pieces. I did a few top to bottoms. I killed all the insides because I wanted to be like Band 2. Band 2 had every inside car.
Yes, let's talk about Nathan, because Bantu is a really important writer of his generation. He was a big insides writer, but he also wrote Delhi 167.
Yep.
He also painted. It was partners with Knock 167, the great style master.
Yep.
So he was a versatile and all around king. He didn't do a lot of, burners per se, but when he did, they were fantastic. And I know when you came up, I knew he was a big influence on you.
Big time. Big time. He was one of the superheroes, like I can say, Bantu. I wanted to be like this guy. You walked in every car, Bantu, Bantu, Bantu headlines. I remember him writing Bambada, the all by myself bomber, out to bomb. Like, I was like, oh, fuck. And I heard he was some big black dude. And then at the time, he was having beef with this guy, Duel, TSR, the original Duel, TSR. And he was having beef with him in the insides. And I knew Duel because he used to hang uptown on Mashula Parkway with some of the MG boys. He was a cool dude, Spanish dude. But Duel was from, I think, from around Fordham Road. He used to hang with, I think, those dudes, Mixer, like Max 183rd, Too Dark, some dude, Too Dark.
By the way, Mixer was my writing partner for a while.
And Duel used to hang with Rip 7 too. They were partners too as well. And I just wanted to be like Band 2 as well on the insides. And I wanted to do the bombs, really, the burners like Mitch and all the guys I saw doing pieces. Mark 198, Kid 17.
What about Fuzz? You didn't mention Fuzz, and Fuzz was king of the fours.
No, yeah, I was about to say Fuzz. Fuzz used to smash the fours too. I used to love Fuzz's tags. He had throw-ups on Mashula Parkway on the other side of the exit. He had big outlines. He had pieces inside junior high school 80 as well. So I remember Fuzz clearly. Fuzz was a big influence. It was just the energy was incredible. It was incredible to come up at a time when all these guys are already kings and already legends. So I caught it right at the right time to be influenced by the best.
And you happen to be influenced, particularly your throw up style. Let's talk about the infamous Cope throw up. That was influenced by Cap,
Yep.
right? Tell me about that engagement with him. Like, how did you connect with him, and how did this come about finding the right throw up style for you?
The thing with Cap is like I had a different throw up before, and my boy Cone at the time, he was working in a grocery store in Bronx Park East with his pops. I think his pops owned it. When you get off the train, there was a grocery store right there owned by some Puerto Ricans. Cone worked in there, and Cone told me, "Yo, guess who walked in here today? I mean, these guys walk in here almost every day. They buy cases of beers. They got a fucking radio blasting rock, and they just walk out." And I was like, "Who?" He said, "Cat, MPC, and all his crew." And I was like, "Really? Fuck out of here." He goes, "Yeah, man." I said, "How did you meet him?" He said, "Yo, the dude's cool. Like, Cone said he was doing, I think, a throw up on a paper bag." And Cap's like, "Oh, you right?" And Cone's like, "Yeah, right, Cone, TNF, KD." And Cap was like, "Oh." And at that time was, I think, 82. The twos and fives just got painted all white. So me and Cone started to smash the twos and fives with outlines. We would go into like Bronx Park East. Gun Hill Road was so dope because we would walk from Meshuggah all the way down Gun Hill and just hit the Gun Hill layups. The Gun Hill layups was so dope. You had 2 lanes on the bottom track, and they were all white trains. So we would just take Rusto Blacks, fucking Regal Reds, and just do outlines with fat caps. Cope and Cone, Cope and Cone. We started to smash the twos and fives really hard with about 80, end of 82, 83. And then I guess Cap saw what we were doing, and Cap knew about the fours because he went to the fours. He hit the fours a few times, and he said, "Oh, you're bond with Cope?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, you guys are getting up." And he told Cone he wanted to meet me, for him to bring me around. And then Cone told me this, and I said, "Hell no, that guy is crazy." I used to hear all these rumors. People want
So you are
to
aware of the style war that was going on, of the whole battle that was going on between him and everyone else.
It was right before Star Wars, because I remember when Cap told me they were doing the film and he was going to film something for Star Wars. I was mad young at the time, but I was already bombing, doing throw-ups, trying to do pieces, and then I mean, when I met Cap, he was cool. I met NPC dudes. I met all of them. They were cool, and they weren't all white boys because you had Dose. Dose is Cuban. You have Flint. Flint is Cuban. You know, Rest and Rush. I think one of them is Puerto Rican. One of them is black. I don't remember. But they weren't all just white boys. So people thought they were just like racist white boys, and they were not.
I'm glad you bring that up because it's so important for people to understand that this culture uh, is not monolithic, right? It's not just black and brown kids. It was just everybody. It was the whole universe of kids that existed in New York City that were painting trains. But the media made you think that it was just black and brown kids that were
No,
destroying the city.
no, not at all. I mean, but it was cool hanging out, and I felt comfortable. And one day I was just sitting down with Cap in the park. We was and they were all doing throw up some black books, and he just did a cope throw up, and he says, "Hey, why don't you try this one?" It was more like thin, and the circles were more big inside, real long. I have pictures of some of them, which is coming out in the book. I have 2 books coming out early next year because now this virus thing messed a lot of things up. But one was supposed to come out this year, one next year. But I'm trying to push both of them out for next year. So he gave me the throw up, and I said, "Wow, that's cool," And I just started to do it, and it went from little thin throw up. It got bigger as it went bigger, and the whole inside got smaller and smaller. And before you know it, I was doing the cope throw ups everywhere on the trains.
So as I understand it, you write God on your pieces, but originally the God tag was, I guess that Cap was writing it, and it meant going over Dondi.
The thing with God, it was really that's Scene's crew, God of Destruction. When he used to do the ODD throw ups, he put God in it, and then Cap I guess they were bombing at the time. Cap, Scene, PJ. Before I met them, they were killing it. And I guess Cap made it going over Dondi, going over Duro, but I never took it that way. I always liked the meaning gods of destruction, like the gods who destroy shit. It was so dope. It was the meaning was so impactful to call it gods of destruction. And when as time went on, I guess Cap, Scene gave it to Cap. Cap had it, then Cap didn't care no more about it. And I asked Cap one time when we were cool, yo, what's up with God? He goes, well, I don't know, like everything's NPC, you know, NPC. I said, yo, I want that crew. He says, go ahead, you know, you want it? And I started rolling with it, you know, God of Destruction. And it was so dope. And before you know, I started putting people down and getting up with it. Then I heard it was God in Brooklyn. And, you know, it was cool. I didn't know, but they were out too, like, I guess in the 80s, Bass and Rebel and these guys. You know, there was a real God crew in Brooklyn as well. But I got that from Cap, which Scene really originally made Gods of Destruction, but Cap took it and made it into going over Dondi and going over Duro.
What were you ever concerned about the beef that was going on with MPC and people like us, TIA and
Oh,
Rob?
yeah, big time. See, as
And
I got older and I started to see all the beef, it was too much. And it really hit me when my pieces on the fours were starting to get like lines through them on the twos and fives, lines through them, crossed out, but they wouldn't put their names, but they were crossing them out. And so one day I'm bombing the fucking layups. I'm told people heard this story, but it's so funny. I'm bombing the layups on Kingsbridge and I'm doing throw ups. I had like 3-4 Rusto Silvers, 2 blacks. I wanted to do just like, you know, probably 20 throw ups, 10 on one side, 10 on the other side, and go home. And it was a park downstairs, St. James Park, and I hear some guys, yo, somebody's writing up there. And at the time, I think there was a crew called TFB, the Fordham Boys, and Tracy used to chill with them, and T-Kid, you know, it was like a little crew. I was cool with them dudes, but I remember T-Kid, he's like whistling, he's like, yo, what you writing? I'm like, oh, COPE2. And then Swan was with him, and me and Swan were cool, Swan 3. So Swan was like, yo, Cope, what's up? It's me, Swan. And then I hear T-Kid talking to him, and Booze was there. A few other dudes I can't remember clearly. But I know Swan, Boozer, T-Kid, I can't remember. I think Rack was there, and maybe some of those TFB kids. So T-Kid was like, yo, meet me at the station. I want to talk to you. So I was like, all right. I didn't think I had a beef with T-Kid because I looked up to T-Kid too. T-Kid was a fucking style master. You know, he killed the 4 lines too as well. You know, you can't forget, T-Kid is a big inspiration to me as well. You know, watching T-Kid's whole cars was incredible. You know, that guy seeing his pieces on the 1s, the 2s, the 5s. That was another thing that was impactful when some of these dudes didn't just hit one line. They went, you seen them on the 4s, the 5s, the 2s, the 1s, the 6s. That's incredible. You know, to see pieces from these dudes all over. So I go to the station and Swan comes running, yo, Cope, break out, break out. I'm like, what? What the fuck's up? Next year, I just see TK with a bat, and he swung that shit like, I don't know if he went to scare me or try to crack my shit, but I weaved it real quick. And I was like, I remember the bat hitting the pole, and he was like, stay out the fucking ghost yard. And at the time, we're starting to hit the ghost yard a lot. We'd go in there, do throw-ups, and break out. I would never do a piece in there because I heard T-Kid would caught you in there, he fuck you up, take you, rob you, take your sneakers, whatever the fuck you got, you're going home naked.
yeah,
So,
the Vamp Squad had it on lock for a minute.
oh yeah, T-Kid had that shit, trust me, man. But I love the Ghost Yard because the Ghost Yard was a fixing shop and it was always dead. It was dark, it was dead. But the thing that was cool about the Ghost Yard, it had the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the A's, the B's, the C's. It had a little of every line. So if you did a throw up on every line, once those cars go back, you're up on every line.
Yeah, you
That
go
was
Old City.
the thing about the Ghost Yard. It wasn't just the yard with it's just the A yard, it's just the D yard. No, it had everything because it was a fix shop. That's where they fixed the trains. So I used to love to go in there, do a few throw ups and break out. Before T-Kid or somebody, not only T-Kid, people would go in there and rob you, man. If you was like, you know, there were a lot of other big artists too robbing motherfuckers. So it wasn't just T-Kid, but T-Kid had it locked at the time. And T-Kid didn't like the idea. I was going in there, and he said, stay out the fucking ghost yard. If I catch you or your buddy Cap in there, I'll crack your fucking heads, period. I said, all right, no problem, you got it.
I
You know,
think
I was a little,
sometimes I think what's interesting about writers now, the culture now, and then, back then, it was still very territorial, right?
Oh,
Coming
big
off the
time.
gang culture of the 70s, the writing culture itself became really territorial about yards and layups, and affiliations as well. One of the things here, we have this picture of the last Redbird in 2005. One of the things that's interesting about you, that not only were you writing with MPC, you wrote with a bunch of crews. You wrote with FC, FBA, TC5, the Ink. I mean, it's this whole. Tell me about this kind of journey, through all these top writing crews of the time.
What it was after with MPC when I left that, I told Cap, look, man, T could just try to crack my shit with a bat, like this is out of hand. And not only that, I think it was a few weeks before that, I was in Utica or Kingston layups. I was bombing and I ran into round one and second. And they were TVS at the time. And they hated Cap. So they were gonna set it on me. I remember second had a big knife. And they was just telling me, yo, don't roll with that fucking them white boys and blah, blah, blah. When you're Puerto Rican. I'm like, look, dude, it's not even about that. Like, but round one was cool because he worked near me or doing messenger work. And I used to run into him. He was a little stocky Puerto Rican dude, really cool dude, but he was a real ill looking dude. So he was like, yo, don't write that shit. Put TVS, man. You should put down TVS. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to jump from MPC to TVS. That shit didn't look right. So I just told Cap, look, man, I don't want no part of this shit. It's getting too out of hand. I'm trying to just get up. I'm doing well. My cars are getting destroyed. I run into crazy motherfuckers like T-Kid and all these dudes. I'm a little dude. Like, I'm a little slim dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is too out of hand. Then I hit Cap running around the fucking train yards with a pump shotgun. And I remember me and Swan was cool at the time. And Swan told me that Cap chased him one time with a big machete. And it chased him like 10 blocks. You hearing that shit, I'm like, yo, this shit is ill. And you knew Cap was, let me tell you, Cap was no joke at that time. People talk a lot of shit about Cap this, Cap that, but no one did nothing. The only dude who ever did anything was T-Kid. T-Kid pressed him. I mean, he pressed T-Kid in an art show, and they fought. And you got to give T-Kid, he got up, he took the first punch, and they threw down. But a lot of people I heard ran into Cap, never did anything. I wasn't there, but the only proof I could say is T-Kid fucking fought him. That's the only guy that ever went and threw down with Cap, toe to toe, when they threw down. And it was because of me, because I told Cap, I don't want to do it. Cap said, look, there's an art show this weekend. I'm going there with Tracy, and I heard T-Kid will be there. And I said, no. Because I was like, this nigga fights fucking T-Kid and beats him up, whoever. Cap was big. He was bigger than T-Kid at that time, but T-Kid was a fighter too. You know what I'm saying? It's not even the size. But I didn't want no part of it. I said, no, just leave it alone, man. But he still went there, and I think he went up to T-Kid and he said, oh, you said I better stay out the ghost, and they just started fighting. And then I remember Cap calling me, and he's like, yo, I fought him. Everything's okay. We had some beers after, a squash. I was like, what? Oh, man, I was scared now. I was like, oh, now I got to run when I see T-Kid. But he said, nah, everything's cool. Don't worry. There's no problems. But I still didn't want to ride MPC because it was still too much. So Cap got offended, and he started to go over me. And at that time, it was a new MPC crew coming up. You're talking like 84. They fought in 84. So 85, I was killing the 2s and 5s too, with pieces,
Right.
throw-ups.
Well, here we have some of those pieces, your later pieces. I mean, I think Cope, I think I'll say this, in the culture, people feel you're a polarizing figure, controversial. But I think the way you've painted it, and it's important for people to understand your background, right? The kind of world you came from, and how as a young kid you had to stand up for yourself.
Exactly.
And negotiate in an adult's world, not only on the streets but inside the underground train system.
Yep.
And so I think it's important. I think those who are listening and may have judgment on you, that perhaps they consider the kind of life you lived as a young Puerto Rican kid in the South Bronx, who was against these kinds of odds. One of the things, you know, of course, you were bombing trains, but you know, once the trains was done, you started. I mean, you did so many works on the street.
Yeah, I
Uh,
started to
uh,
kill the
the,
streets.
the cope now by this point, the cope throw up becomes enigmatic. Now we know it's your branding. We know it. We see it everywhere, and there's no stopping you.
Nope. I guess it was more like, you know, it was a traditional thing, man. It was in the soul. It's in the spirit. You just can't stop, man. It just, and I worked, you know, I worked, but in free time I wanted to do walls. You know, when the trains died, you know, a lot of people died. They didn't write no more. They stopped writing. Some writers went doing canvases, and some guys just did regular jobs. I started to do, you know, not only me, there was other writers doing walls. You know, you had dudes like COD Crew, Wayne, you know, these are guys that were doing pieces in the streets too. You know, a lot of dudes were doing pieces in the streets after the trains. Even while the trains were riding, people were doing, you know, rooftops and stuff like that.
Right. I
That,
mean, but you know, the thing is that you kept going up until what year do you think? Well, I mean, you know, you have to disclose a year, but I mean, you kept writing even on the new trains. You,
yeah, that was you know, I never liked the new trains, and I thought it was a waste of time. But it was guys like Cav, that dude Ven, and Ghost and Ket. They were hitting clean trains, and I was like, these niggas are crazy. Like they were really hitting clean trains, like it was still the '80s. So that kind of, you know, watching Cavs doing the trains and Cento too. I said, wait a minute, fuck it. You know, I started doing them. You know, Cavs kind of pushed me in that direction because I was to see his pictures. He was always a cool dude. You go to his house, he showed pictures. And I was like, damn, these niggas are doing clean trains. I said, hey, try one. Once you try one, that's it. It's addictive. You start doing them again. You start doing them again. But one thing I started to do when I heard the Vandal Squad was out there, and this is one thing people don't understand why I've never really got caught into my video King Destroy came out in 2000 was every time I did a clean train, after I took my picture, I destroyed it. Okay? I destroyed it. So when the Vandal Squad comes to take a picture, they don't know who did it. They don't know who did it. They
mm,
see a piece all smashed and destroyed. So they cannot, you know, charge me with anything because they don't even know who did it. And I did that for many years. And I still do it.
and of course, you went to the walls. You started. One of the things that's what is really cool about your transition is that you really focused on style writing. You went from hardcore bombing to hardcore style writing. At this point, in terms of the style that you're developing, are you getting influenced by somebody directly, or are you just
Oh
figuring this
yeah.
out?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, when I met Case Two, you know, through my boy Hep, like when he met me, you know, introduced me to Case Two at the bench in '82. That's it. I was, you know, Case Two started to show me style. And only not only Case Two, but I was watching people. I would watch T Kid style. I would watch Delta Two. You know, when I met Delta in late '82, we did a car, me, him, and Joey, in early '83. And Delta always had a smooth style, which was, you know, really cool. And Delta showed me how to be clean, you know, how to do nice clean pieces. Case Two started to show me how to do more connections and you know, connect your letters. And then I started doing them on the walls, but they were terrible until I met Dero. You know, Dero, this guy is a perfectionist. You paint with Dero, this guy, he used to show me, dude, take your time. Like I'm over here, and before you know it, I got arrows going everywhere, but they're not making any sense. And then Dero comes and he does these nice, clean lines, and his arrows so sharp. And I'm watching him like, damn. So Dero kind of, because, you know, coming from the trains and going on the walls was pretty tough. It wasn't, pieces weren't looking too great. So Dero kind of showed me a lot how to be clean on the walls. And that's it. I started doing pieces, man. A lot of people started coming out again. And, you know, before you know it, Europeans are coming to New York and you're meeting them and you're painting walls with all of them. Man, it's a journey, man. It's been a journey and a
and
really blessing one.
And you start establishing these relationships that I think will pay off for you later, because the Europeans would then invite you back out to Europe, to do pieces and productions and exhibitions.
Yeah. You know, I started meeting them. It was through graffiti mags. At the time, I think it was the early 90s, a lot of graffiti magazines, you know, from all over the world. And I used to go like down to Soho, and they would have graffiti mags, and Tower Records. Tower Records had graffiti mags. I would steal them. And I would just like, oh shit, fucking magazine from Australia, from fucking Norway, Paris, Spain. I was like magazines from everywhere. And then you see the graffiti, how it went overseas, and niggas were doing trains in Europe. It was like phenomenal. I was like, yo, this shit is on another level in Europe. And then they start making spray cans and fucking spray caps. Man, that shit was insane. I remember when I had friends like Tilt used to come in and bring me spray paint. And this guy, who was this other guy named Adrian Nobby? He had back jumps.
Yeah, I know Adrian. Yeah.
Yeah, he would bring me in sometimes 10, 20 Beltons. At the time, Belton was so dope. I mean, if you had a purple, the Fed purple light, forget it. I would use that shit for 20 pieces. I would squeeze it. I mean, the pinks, it was totally, at the time I was using Crystolium and the Krylons, but when the Beltons, people, and I remember Wayne and COD dudes, they were hooked up with dudes from Europe too already, even before me. You know, I'm giving the props where the props are due. You know, they were already doing pieces with these guys and using that European paint. So I kind of was like, wow. And then when I started meeting these guys, they were bringing it into me, and then I would try to share it with some of my boys. And before you know it, man, the pieces started coming out better. You have
Yeah, because the
colors.
quality of paint was better. The Belton was
Yeah,
the
the
equivalent of a
Belton
Red
was
Devil.
insane. It was insane. That mint green. It was like using old Rustos again almost, but they have better colors, more colors.
Right. So now, look, man, as you're getting better at this, and already you already know that graffiti is being commercialized. You know that we're showing in galleries and museums. We're thinking bigger and out the box about this, but you're still kind of going headstrong, and you know, like you're staying focused on who you are and the pieces that you're painting. At what point were you thinking, you know what, maybe I should get involved with this graffiti gallery game? I think I paid my dues. It's time to switch gears.
Man, it really started in probably in 2000. You know, I mean, I always watched. You know, I went to galleries in the 90s. I went to I knew Keith Haring. I remember when he had his shop in downtown. I would walk by, he'd be there sometimes. I would talk to him, you know, and I used to work with this dude named Devo. And I remember Devo would come with black books, and he's like, yo, bomb him up. I'm going to Martin Wong's studio. I didn't know Martin Wong. He's like, yo, come with me, man. I'm going to meet Basquiat. This was like in 80, probably 84, 85, you know? But I was like, man, I'm going home to get blunted and chill with the dudes. Like, I wasn't into that. And the dude Devo, I heard he passed away. He's a good friend of mine back then, but he was cool with all of them. And, you know, I always watched people do canvases. You know, I've seen the shows with the days, the crashes, the scenes, the dandies. I've seen all that. You know, I've seen the pieces, and I was like, damn, I would like to do that. Because as time went on, I got tired of working. You know, I did every job you could think of, construction, security, everything, man. I just got sick of it. Mail rooms, everything you could think of, I did. I got sick of it. You know, it's like, yo, you have to work 2 jobs to make all this money. You go to a gallery and you see a canvas there for 10 grand, 5 grand. Yo, it takes me like a fucking month to make 3 grand. And you see dudes selling that shit. So it wasn't till like 2000 they were doing a big auction. I don't remember who contacted me. It could have been Keo. I don't remember, but they contacted me and said, hey, you want to put some paintings in this big auction the Christie's is doing. And I was like, canvases? I don't do canvases. I was like, but the guy, I'm a people talk, yo, do it, man. You never know. At least get your name in a catalog. That's how you start. You know, even if you don't sell. I was like, man, fuck it. I did 3 canvases. I remember taking a clock and punching it through a canvas. You know, I got creative. And it was a Christie's auction in 2000, and the opening was somewhere in Lafayette Street. And I went. It was so many people. I was kind of the energy was dope. I was like, wow, this is cool, you know? And I was still doing walls and stuff. And at the time, I think I had came out with my video, Kings Destroy.
Was
Dr.
it, what was it? Are you thinking of the Guernseys auction?
Yeah, the Guernsey,
Guernsey.
Christie.
Yeah, not Christie, Guernseys. Yeah. Yeah, I
That was
remember.
that's what really set me off, because I sold 2 pieces in that auction. And I think it was the first graffiti auction with something like that. It was huge. And I was shocked when they told me I sold paintings. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I didn't believe it. I thought this shit was gonna sell. And I know one didn't sell. I sold it later on for some good money. The one with the clock, time after time. The other 2 sold. It was a big tag with drips and a big throw up. I brought some corny shit in there. I don't remember. I sold both of them. I think I made maybe around I don't remember, maybe $2,000 it was. That shit, I said, wow, that was a nice paycheck. From there on, that was it. I wanted to do canvases, but it was tough because it's like, how the hell am I gonna get into this gallery world? So I started doing little shows in graffiti shops. And at the time, I was getting flown around Europe to promote my video, flown around America to promote my video. So they would tell me, hey, bring little canvases and you could sell them, you know, at the store. So I would bring little throw-up canvases, little piecing canvases, and boom, I would sell them $200-300. But yo, and then you getting your flight paid, hotel paid. You come home for like after like probably 2-3 days with like $3,000 in your pocket. That was good. It took me $3,000 to make that shit in a month, you know? So that's how it started, man. And I just watched. I watched people, the way I'm not this dude that hates, and you see a writer climbing and you start hating and getting jealous. I didn't do that. I watch and I use it towards my advantage, and I take their energy and use it. And I say, wow, look, I want to be like that. And Basquiat too. Basquiat was a big influence. I always watched him, you know, the way he just did it. You know, he just did it. He did it his way. I always watched Basquiat, and I loved the way he just painted the canvas, wrote what he wanted to write. I always watched it, and he influenced me a lot. And even Keith Haring influenced me in the art world as well by doing these big walls. He was doing big walls by himself, you know, all over the fucking place. This guy was doing huge walls. So, you know, dudes like that inspired me a lot to do the art, like canvases and paintings.
Well, one of the things that you again, you found the moniker, right? You found the cult bubble style that would, one, be easy to produce, but also, you know, gain the affection of people who like graffiti or who, you know, can attain it, right? Because it's so accessible. The bubble letters are so accessible to people. And one, the branding, I mean, you were smart to do the global branding, but also that you showed some diversity in terms of the work itself. You started doing more paintings that were more invested, right? More into kind of environmental type paintings. And tell me about getting to this place where you're trying to fit into this other world, not just you know, as your personality and person, but also as an artist, as trying to create contemporary works that feel that they are worthy of being in galleries and museums.
Like, man, just watching, you know, watching people and watching the way they're doing it. You know, Cause is one of them too. I can't front. You know, I painted walls with Cause in '95 when he was done. We were on the same crew FC at the time. He did some walls in the Bronx with us, and I saw him the way he took off too. And I watched it. I'm like, damn, this motherfucker's killing it, you know. And just watching the way he was doing his canvases, and you know, the way I do my canvases, I just try to be me. You know, I just try to give you the raw cope. When you get a cope canvas, you're getting something that I did in the 40 years, just all in one painting. You know, some people like, oh, how does he make money off that bullshit throw up? I've been doing that throw up since the early 80s in the subway cars. You know, I call it now the iconic image. And I had to copyright it and all that because people love it. You know, I sell bubble throw ups every day. It's just incredible. So it's like, and when you put color into it, it becomes almost like a pop art kind of image. And look, man, I'm in the 50s now, man. I got grandkids, I got kids. I don't have time to be running around in subway yards or you know, the art world, you got to make money, man. And
So does for you in the art world, the kind of um, academic and critical assessment they put on paintings, you know, does that matter to you at all? Does that art speak? Does that art criticism matter to you, or are you just talking to a specific audience with your work and that's it?
say that again. I'm sorry.
In terms of the work that you're making, you know, in terms of the the critique of it, right? And the kind of work you're making, which is kind of borderline graffiti and pop, um, you know, and how do you kind of negotiate the criticism of it from the art world?
I mean, you know, in the end of the day, you know, you're going to be accepted or not, but it doesn't matter. You know, in the end of the day, if you're an artist, right? If you're a real artist, you got to do it for yourself. You can't do it for money. Like when I painted trains, I did it for myself because it was fun. I wanted to become a king of a line. When I painted the streets, I did it for fun, you know, to do pieces on the street. So that's what I try to do with the paintings. But the thing now, it's my business now. It's my life. It's my passion. You know, it's a whole different world now, you know, and a whole different deal. But at the same time, when I do a painting, I'm just having fun with it. You know, I just tag, I'll write somebody's name. I'm listening to music. I'll write something that I'm thinking about, or just throw paint, whatever, you know. And let me tell you, in the beginning, I started to do regular pieces, like just regular burners, and it was hard to sell that. I can't front. Nobody
Hmm.
wanted to sell graffiti pieces. It was really hard, unless you were maybe somebody from the early 80s. They already started, like Dondi, maybe Scene, Futura. You know, these guys already were established that they could do a piece and they would sell it. I was new into the game, so I can't just do a coat piece. Oh, I'm gonna buy it. So I started to watching Basquiat, how he took the roller paint, threw it on the canvas, and then wrote over it and started doing layers. I said, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that with my graffiti and my tags, and it started to work. Before you know it, when I started to throw the primer in it, the acrylics with the tags, the spray paint, the markers, that was it. It took off, and I started to get shows in Paris, you know, Italy, Germany, New York, and they really loved it. They
So
really loved it.
tell me about this traveling, this kid from the South Bronx, from the hood, from the ghetto, all of a sudden becoming this international celebrity of sorts in the graffiti world. And all of a sudden you're thrown into all these different cultures of dealing with language and food and uh, communities.
Man, dude, it's a blessing, man. Let me tell you, when I even first went to Germany was in 2000. I went to Wiesbaden in Germany for, it was called the Meeting of Styles. And I went there, and then I was doing a tour for my video. I went to like 6, 7 cities in Germany. And this guy, Zepster Hakim, had stores called MZ Shop. And he sponsored the whole tour. And I went to in every city I went to in Germany, I did trains. It was so easy too. You're talking 2000. And I would meet people, and I'm in the store signing videos, and dudes were like, you want to do a train? You want to do action? I'm like, what? You want to do action? Trains. I'm like, I don't want to get caught out here. Like, you know, you're bugging out. These kids will tell you want to do trains that is very easy. And then you go do one, you're like, wow, this shit is dead. It's like, you just walk in and just do it and walk out. That's how it was. So I started doing trains all over. And before you know it, you know, I started doing a lot of events. And then going to Paris, I met Congo. I met Congo and the Mac crew, you know, Oris and Mayor, uh, and a lot of writers from Paris. And I remember Congo was running this thing called the Cosmopolite, and I think it was in 2003, 2004, something like that. He flew me over, and you paint, and they pay your flight, and you paint walls, you get free paint. That's how it all started, man. I just started to mingle with a lot of Europeans because I was killing the graffiti mags at that time too, and before that. So they knew who I was too from the graffiti mags. I was
Yeah.
doing interviews in a lot of graffiti magazines.
So you put in the work. So Cope, we're going to take a pause for a second, and
Okay.
we're going to come back on because we only have a minute left on this session of Instagram, but it goes to show, right? When you put in the work, I think it can't be disputed. You've worked hard on and off the trains to create your brand and your name. And one of the things we're going to explore when we come back is some of what's come out of that as well. With the, of course, we've seen some of the gallery shows, but also some of the other high-profile projects that you've done. So, folks, stay on. I'm gonna sign off, save the video, and come back on. Okay. I'll be right back.